Welcome to Tint.com. Today we're going to take a look at a program called Amberlight from a company called Escape Motions. And I'm going to take a look at it on my MacBook Pro Retina here, and it will run on OS X as well as Windows. So we'll take a look at this program later on my other tablets. But so what is Amberlight? Amberlight, as you can see from these interesting slideshow images off of Escape Motion's website, is a program that generates rather interesting abstract art. And it does so and making it a very, very easy, fun thing to do. So if you were to go to, say, images.google.com, for example, and look for something like abstract wallpapers, you'll get a lot of these images like this. And you've probably seen a lot of these kind of abstract, swirly pattern images that are pretty cool and can make them for great desktops. But trying to make one of these yourself can be kind of tricky. It requires a bit of playing around in Photoshop, using a lot of blending options, as well as various different filters to kind of get something that makes look close to this. Amberlight kind of makes that an easy thing to do. So let's take a look at it and see what it's like. So I'm going to run over here and find it, run the program, and I have it set up as full screen mode. And now that it's running, you can see it automatically starts creating some artwork already, just out of the box, just starts doing it. So if you look at we'll take a look at the stuff on the left side here. As you can see, it's rendering, and as it's rendering, it's taking steps from basically 0 to 5,000, and in increments, it's actually rendering these interesting patterns on the screen. So we'll stop that for a minute, and let's take a look at what it actually is doing. So if you click on the canvas itself here, you see that these four spheres basically that are here, and that actually represents the fields that are here. So by default, the startup is four spheres, four fields of influence for these particles that basically make up the image. So, looking from the top down from this side here, you have the zoom tools. You can zoom in and out of your image, and right at 100%, it's like so. If you zoom back out, about 50% to kind of get a view of the entire canvas. So I'm going to drop this down to one field so we can get a feel for what these fields are. And as soon as I make the changes, notice that it's actually starting to run the render again, so I'll stop that. And so I go over and take a look, and the middle knob of the field actually just moves the field around. And we can take a look at the other options here. This is considered the force of the field, which basically is the size of how big the field is, and also how big its interactions with other fields on the screen are going to be. The intensity is here. So top knob is the intensity, and you can actually go below or above the field. And so you notice that if I increase the intensity this way, I start making a hole in my field there, versus going down here. It sort of does the inverse operation. And you see that if I move around, it affects the way the particles react within the field itself. Now at the bottom of this knob here is the cutoff. And what the cutoff does is, as you can see, it does another way of affecting how the particles are behaving within the field itself. And so if I pull all the way out, I start making a hole. And I pull it back in, I start making it more dense within the center of the field. So if I stop this for a minute, and we'll take a look at these contrast curves down here, this affects the color range that you have to play with. So you see that the base, as I crank it all the way to 100 versus cranking it down to 1, it just kind of affects the overall base color of what you see on the canvas. The peak is the intensity, sort of an intensity. As I bring it down to 1 versus all the way to 100, you see how incredibly bright it can make it, so you can play with it that way. Limit is also useful for, basically, well, there's a limit of how much interaction is going to be with the color. So you can play with that as well and get some interesting effects with that. Opacity for how well the particles, how much they take up the screen. And these are other options that are turned off right now, but if you turn on tint, for example, it'll tint the background, and it'll take this color here, and you can choose any color you want, and it'll tint it that way. And you can change how much you want for the tint in the background to be. And you can, and what's cool is you can rotate it. So you can rotate the corners, and you see you get some really interesting effects out of that. And ultimately, here's the last one. Here's the glow, and that basically, as you can see, affects the strength of how much the colors themselves glow. So if you want to get more like a sun star flare effect, you can use that for it. And if you click off the field, you can see that that's what you're going to get. So that makes things interesting. We'll add another field, and we'll look at how it interacts with themselves. So if I kind of move this to the side here and make this one similar in size, it's kind of close, and yeah, it's close enough. Move to the side here. See how they play off of each other. They kind of have a gravity between themselves to kind of suck themselves in. And so you can see that, you know, with the two of them, you kind of get the, as it renders, you see it kind of draws itself around. There's really cool swirls going around. Very, very cool thing that it does. And so, you know, for example, if I move this further away and I add a third one in here, oh, not too many, 3, there you go, and put this sort of between the two, you get a lot of different dynamics at play now. Now you get this kind of, you know, more of an interesting dynamic between each of themselves as it renders. And you can turn the tint off, for example, and turn the glow off. And you see and this is where you can actually see how much the glow kind of affects the overall image itself. Really kind of cool. So now that you have this, and I talked about everything on here, and we have this kind of beginning drawing going on here, we can talk about what's on the right side, which is basically the colors, and also the layers panel. I'll get to that in a minute. But colors, this is where you can get, by default, it uses gradients. This is your gradient right here. You can change things here. You can flip or shift the color palette that's currently available. So if I basically flip it, you kind of inverts it. You get some interesting effects out of that way. I can shift it, and once again, you get very interesting effects going as well. So different things that you can try to achieve with the various different color palettes here. And you got knobs here for hue and saturation and so forth. And there's a whole ton of predefined gradients you can use too. By just clicking on this or this color here, you can quickly just cycle through some various pre-made gradients to get some really interesting color effects if you don't like the default one that was there. If you go to color, you can basically decide to not use gradients, just go with a solid color. So I'll say, let's say red. So there's now just a solid red, and basically uses these contrast curves for that one solid color, or I can tweak it as I play with the various colors on the palette over here, and use some really neat effects just by playing with just color as opposed to gradients. Now, of course, gradients give you a lot more interesting effects, but if you wanted something simple, you can just use colors. So there's a lot of options for colors there. So we go down to layers finally here. The ambient light layer right here is what I'm playing with. All this stuff I'm playing with here is in the Amberlight layer. And you know, I can easily, if I stop this, and easily change the gradient or change the opacity, and you see that the background color is black. And so the opacity of the Amberlight layer will then basically play into how much of the background color will show through. And I can change that. I can say, let's go with like a kind of a bluish tinge here. How's that? And you see now it's kind of got the blue color here. And I can change the blending options for like lighten or darken this layer stack, basically, or just go back to normal. And you know, as you see, if you click this to hide it, you know, that's what the background is. Now this image layer here is something where you can actually load another image in here. So if you had a photo, or say like if you want to do a space scene, got a spaceship you pre-rendered somewhere, or some image you worked in Photoshop or some other program, you can basically load it in here and have Amberlight on top of it. So in an example, over here, I'm going to load up image I was playing with over here. Got this here. So this is a simple example I created, and you know, standard 4 fields, but it's kind of got this almost like a planetary shadow type thing going here. And that's what it has. And what I did is what you can do from the get-go is if you're happy with something, you can save as, and you have the option of saving as an Amberlight file, which saves all the parameters, or you can go with a PNG, JPEG, or whatever other file format if you're ready to use it as a background. So what I can do then is I did that previously with another file, and I can import that image right here, this one here. And so once it's imported, you can see that here's my image. I can place it kind of where I want it to go, and if I'm happy with the placement or the sizing of it, I'm going to make sure it fills the entire canvas area. And hit OK. And there. So here's my image. So it's kind of blended on top, but what I want to do is I want to see if I can use this as a lighten layer for the Amberlight layer, and you see that this thing really pops now. So this image I created previously in Amberlight now is at the base of my Amberlight image, and I can play with the opacity of this one, drop it down a little bit, get more of the background to show up if I want to, or if we want to change, say, like I want to change this background to something like even maybe yellowish background, like that, and then basically, let's see, what did I do with this thing? What did I do? Oh, no. No, let's hide that. Oh, my Amberlight layer's gone. Oh, that's interesting. What happened there? Oh, there you go. Somehow my render dropped down to 0, so nothing was there. That's very strange. So what I can do now is I can drop the opacity if I want of this image, and that kind of shows through the background if I wanted to. But I'm not going to go back to black. I didn't like the way that looked. So let's go back to black here. And I'm kind of liking how this looks. This kind of cool. And I can continue to render, and you see, it keeps building up and building up as time goes on. I'll stop it, and so if I'm happy with this, then I can save it as go back up here, save as, and save as a JPEG file or PNG file, and I'll call it my Darwin.com, Darwin bg01.png, for example. And then now it's saved as a PNG file, and I can load that and use it as a desktop background or distribute it and give it to people if I want to. So there you have it. It's a quick look at Amberlight by Escape Motions. It's a really fun program. You can create really interesting abstract backgrounds really pretty quickly without a lot of work. So if I hit new, for example, I'll say no, I don't want to save this stuff. You can define the size of your canvas, and as soon as it's done, here's the new file. It's automatically rendering new things, and you get some really cool stuff already just by default as the program loads up. So if you have any questions about this program or things that you haven't seen or things you'd like to see, please let me know. Send me some comments. Subscribe to my channel, and well, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.